beautiful souls, and welcome to another 5 in 1 Mayaani Talks. You are not going to believe what has happened. A beautiful soul made me aware that part one of my journey with you, looking at Indian Jewelry traditions, was muted. So I had to take it off, and here I am recording it again. Now, I am actually exploring each of these Indian Jewelry traditions in a new series. Episode one is out already, in which I'm looking at the different regions of India and looking at these traditions in more detail because there are so many of them. I was unaware, despite being Gujarati and Indian myself, completely unaware of just how many diverse and beautifully rich and extraordinary jewelry traditions there are across India, which is, of course, my ancestral homeland. So I decided I needed to create a series dedicated to exploring each region so that I could look at each of these traditions in turn and actually give you more of an insight into them and help myself develop more of an insight into them as well. So, in this particular part one, we're simply going to journey through some of the brilliant and beautiful jewelry traditions that exist across India, which actually is more like a continent of jewelry traditions rather than just a community or country of jewelry traditions. There are so many jewelry traditions across India, and India, I suppose, for that reason, is referred to as a subcontinent because it literally is like many different countries in one country because of the diversity of not just jewelry traditions, but languages, food, clothing, you name it, religions. So I'm looking at some of these today. Let's dive right in. And as I say, as more detail is coming up in my new series, which is out now. So I welcome you to check out episode one, in which I share Rajasthan's extraordinarily beautiful, exquisite, visually captivating jewelry traditions. But for now, let's dive into fact number one. So, number one, as I already mentioned, India's jewelry traditions are more than just, I mean, there are about 20, if I want to say, jewelry traditions that are particularly notable, but there's over 20 of them. And some of them less well recorded and less well heard of and known of than others, which is why I say about 20, because that's how many there are, roughly speaking, that are actually we've got more detail about and that are better documented, if you like. So some of these, if we look at them, not only vary according to region, it's important to note. So I'm looking at them by region in my new series, but they don't just vary according to region. The Indian jewelry traditions vary according to your caste, unfortunately. Yes, we're trying to eradicate the caste system, but it does dictate a lot of things still within India. And unfortunately, in other parts of the world, these caste systems exist as well. But essentially, your jewelry traditions across India vary according to region, according to caste, according to community, according to religion, according to the season of the year, fascinatingly, and also according to the ceremony for which you are wearing the piece of jewelry. So there are many reasons why the jewelry traditions vary across India. And let's look at a couple of them now. So Rajasthan, this is still part of fact number one. I must clarify for myself. Rajasthan, for example, has all sorts from Kundan jewelry, which has Meenakari enameling on the back, to Thewa jewelry, which interestingly belongs to one specific family. More on that later. All the way through to pieces like, which are lesser heard of. I'm going to look at my notes for a second because they don't always stick in my Lak jewelry, the Lak resin bangles, which you may be familiar with, which are brightly colored, very vibrant, a beautiful, colorful, bold display of declaring yourself to the world, essentially. And these bangles are designed to be worn every day. So they flow with you through life, which is beautiful. They're not just designed to be worn for a special ceremony or occasion. You wear them all the time as a joyful celebration of, I suppose, being yourself. And then, of course, there's lots of tribal silver jewelry traditions across Rajasthan as well, with the nomadic and semi-nomadic communities having developed those. And those are less well known of, or I should say, less popularized, which may be a good thing in some senses, but in some senses means that we have overlooked an entire area of jewelry traditions, an entire style of jewelry tradition, which is very rich and deeply meaningful and intricate in its technical craftsmanship, as much as any of the others that are more popularly heard of, like Kundan, for example, or Thewa, or Lak bangles. Now, looking across South India, there are a number of jewelry traditions there as well. You've got South Indian tempo jewelry, for example. You've got pieces like the Udyanam, which is a belt a bride wears around her waist, which is worn because the waist is seen as the sacred zone of fertility, also feminine power and life. So adorning it is honoring all three of these things. You've got the jimki, which are the beautiful South Indian earrings of Kerala and Tamil Nadu, and they are basically dancing earrings, and they are inseparable from classical Indian dances of Bharatanatyam and Mohiniyattam. So there's lots of beautiful traditions there. Gujarat and Maharashtra is another region with its own beautiful jewelry traditions, from things like your Haath Phool, which is the Indian hand bracelet, through to Navratna jewelry, which involves 9 gemstones. So you can see, and we must not forget, of course, Bengal and East India as well. Let me briefly mention those. Across Bengal and East India, you've got a number of jewelry traditions as well. There's Shakla and Pola, which are two bangles a bride receives on her wedding day, and they're both different colors. One is white, made from conch shell, carved from conch shell. The other is red, carved from coral. And the bride wears both on her wrists for the rest of her marital life. There's other traditions like the loha, which is an iron bangle intentionally created in iron because iron is seen to bring strength and grounding for your new life. And again, it's worn by brides. And you've got the tarakashi as well. We'll go into some of these in my new series in more detail. But this is just to give you a little bit of a flavor of just how many different jewelry traditions there are across India. And as I say, at the moment, I'm looking at according to region, but there are many variations for all of the reasons we mentioned before, many factors influencing the variations. Now, let's look briefly at South Indian temple jewelry. This one's interesting because this jewelry tradition actually began in temples. So it was not actually a jewelry form that was designed for adorning people. It was designed and created as an act of service to God and God to gods and goddesses within the temple, and essentially beautifully intricate, elaborate, exceptionally detailed. And you can imagine the level of craftsmanship involved. These pieces of gold jewelry were created essentially to drape on idols in the temples. Then, over hundreds of years, slowly the tradition moved out of temples. Not to say that it completely left the temples. I need to check that. I imagine it was still, it didn't replace the temple traditions. Temple traditions did not suddenly become different when it moved out of them, but essentially it spread. It spread out of the temple, and it started to be a tradition that was worn by brides as well, because, of course, in Vedic scripture, a Hindu bride is seen as the embodiment of Ma Lakshmi, as Ma Lakshmi incarnate. And Ma Lakshmi, obviously, being Ma Shakti, the divine feminine power that is the basically the primordial source of all life on the planet or in the universe, not just on our planet. She is dressed, bride on her day, on her wedding day, a Hindu bride is dressed with that in mind. And this temple jewelry is fascinating because often it does involve a lot of intricate details and elaborate iconography that would be associated with gods and goddesses and deities. Fact number three, moving into Gujarat and, of course, Rajasthan. As mentioned, across Gujarat and Rajasthan, this particular tradition I'm going to mention today, of course, we've mentioned briefly a couple, which I'll explore more, but I thought we'd mention briefly Streedhan here. Now, Stree is, of course, means woman, as I've learned, and Dhan means wealth, essentially, or and sacred gift. So essentially, across the communities that celebrate or that practice Streedhan, it is the giving of gold jewelry in particular, to a woman on her wedding day, to honor her as Ma Lakshmi incarnate, essentially considered her dharmic right. It's not supposed to be something that she's just given as a gift to secure her financial, well-being in her marital life. It's not just a safety net for her to fall back on a rainy day, which I think is what a lot of communities and many families may perceive it as today, because the stories have not been passed on. I certainly thought of it as that. I thought of it as primarily a source of financial support if a woman during her married life needed some financial support for any reason. But in actual fact, it is considered her dharmic right. So it is beyond our physical and financial benefit that she may receive from receiving it. It is actually considered her spiritual right to receive this gold jewelry and to have complete power and control over it. Essentially, it's seen as this jewelry being, to some degree, a reflection of her sovereignty, her power, her own internal feminine power. And she has the right to decide how she wishes to hold these pieces, to wear these pieces, to pass on these pieces, and when she wishes to part with them if she ever needs to. Of course, we know, and sadly, that this has not always been the case. Women who have received Streedhan on their wedding day have not always been able to be completely and fully in charge or in control of their Streedhan, because their Streedhan has been abused essentially. So in part two, we go into that a little bit more. So feel free to check out part two of my exploration of Jewelry traditions across India. But for today, I'll leave it there because I could talk on. Anyway, so I thought we'd mention Streedhan in particular because it's interesting that it's not just supposed to be something she receives from a financial viewpoint. It is actually seen as a gift she's meant to receive from her family, from her, that's from a parental family, not her marital, not the family she's marrying into. She's meant to receive it from her birthing family, her parents, for as a dharmic right, as for recognition, in recognition of the fact that she is Ma Lakshmi incarnate, that she is sovereign, that she is divine feminine power embodied in physical form. Number four, across Vedic traditions, of course, the hand, which I was unaware is actually one of the most sacred body parts. And it does make sense when you look into explanations why, but essentially, the hand is considered one of the most sacred human body parts because it not only has the power to create, but also to destroy. It has the power to give and also to receive. It is therefore seen as important for us to honor the hand. And this is where the idea of the hearthful came from. The hearthful was an adornment created to specifically honor and give precedence to and almost highlight the human hand, specifically a woman's hand. And it involves a wrist bracelet that is connected to one or more fingers via rings. So you have a ring. It depends how many rings you want to wear. You can wear it on just one finger, just one ring, or have five rings. But essentially, each ring is then connected to this wrist bracelet to create a beautiful Haath Phool, as it's called. It has a few other names as well, but I've grown up knowing it as Haath Phool, and it is from Gujarat and Rajasthan in particular. I interestingly thought it was much more widespread and known of than that, but it's only as I looked into it and spoke with Indians from other parts of India, I discovered actually it's not as well known as I thought. It's interesting, isn't it? Because you grow up within a certain community and you have the traditions that are present within that community. And typically, unfortunately, growing up, many of our traditions were just labeled as Indian. It wasn't this is a Gujarati tradition. It was this is an Indian tradition. So of course, growing up, because that slight, inaccuracy in how you're wording the tradition as you're passing it on to the next generation, which I think is important to be mindful of. You can end up like me, growing up thinking this is an Indian tradition, so therefore all Indians know it. No, they don't. Anyway, so yes, that a particular Jewelry tradition is about honoring the human hand. So you can see that these traditions arise for many different reasons. In the case of temple jewelry, it's a reason because you want to show your devotion to gods and goddesses, to beings, divine beings in the cosmos who hold a lot of power and who you want to pay some form of you want to just pay some respect to, essentially, yes, and you're paying respect to them by creating these pieces of jewelry, all the way through to jewelry that's actually specifically designed to be a woman's dharmic right, her spiritual inheritance, all the way through to pieces of jewelry designed to adorn a particular part of the body because it's considered incredibly sacred. Now, going on to our final fact of today, we'll look at Navratna jewelry, which I briefly mentioned before. And Navratna jewelry is 9 gemstone jewelry. Now, I was not familiar with this one, but essentially, this idea of wearing 9 gemstones in a piece of jewelry is rooted in Vedic wisdom, specifically in Jyotish wisdom, which is the ancient Vedic science of light and planetary wisdom. So, in this particular piece of jewelry, the 9 gemstones are not randomly chosen. Each of the gemstones is considered to be an embodiment, if you like, or in alignment, or seen to bring you into alignment with a cosmic body. So the ruby, for example, is a gemstone that you wear for Surya, who is the sun. So if you want to bring yourself more in alignment with the sun, you wear rubies. Each of the gemstones, let me mention a few more. There's the pearl. So within these 9 gemstones, ruby, pearl, red coral, emerald, yellow sapphire, diamond, blue sapphire, hessonite, and catphire are the 9 gemstones. There are different reasons for which they are worn and different planetary bodies or beings, cosmic beings they're associated with. I'll give you a few examples. We've already spoken about ruby. The pearl is seen to be for bringing yourself in alignment with and essentially just showing your bond with, if you like, or communicating your connection with and your reverence for Chandra, the moon, basically. When it comes to red coral, you wear that for Mangal, who is basically Mars, and considered the son of Bhumi, who is the goddess of earth goddess. Emerald you wear for alignment with Buddha. So there are different reasons for which you wear these gemstones. And essentially, to wear these 9 gemstones is to bring yourself into alignment with each of these 9 cosmic bodies and beings who are essentially seen as the most important cosmic forces um, in the universe. And that is bring yourself in alignment with them. They are the energies that move through all things in the universe, these 9 particular bodies or beings that the gemstones are associated with. So more on that in my up and coming series. As I mentioned, episode 1 is already out, exploring Rajasthan. Before we sign off today, I think it's important to question, whilst all of these beautiful traditions have very rich and deeply meaningful reasons for which women wear them, were they actually created with women in mind, or were in some way honoring women and their voices, or were they simply created to give women something to carry? And that's something I hope to explore with you a bit more in part 2 of this beautiful journey across Indian jewelry traditions. If you've enjoyed today, please do feel free to hit that like button. I welcome you to subscribe and to hit the notification bell if you, like me, believe that jewelry should always be more than just an afterthought, or if you have found yourself questioning whether jewelry should be more than just something pretty you put on because it looks beautiful. And the answer is it never has been. We just potentially have lost touch with why it is we wore it in the first place. And I think becoming more aware of why it was created, why we used to wear it, can leave us in a more powerful place and space from which to make a decision about which pieces we want to continue to wear, because now we have an understanding of why it is we're wearing them. And therefore, when we go on to pass them on as well, we empower the next generation to make their own choices and decisions. I feel that freedom should be granted. Make their own choices and decisions about how they wish to wear these pieces, which of them they wish to wear, why they wish to wear them, and how and why and when they wish to pass them on, if they do. So there we are. Wishing you a beautiful week ahead, as always, because your jewelry should always be more than just an afterthought. And thank you, thank you, thank you to the beautiful soul who let me know that when I first put this video out there, it was muted. Bye for now. I'll be back again soon.